Imagine a world where Tom Selleck, the iconic star of the 1980s, could have been Indiana Jones. It's a casting decision that has baffled fans for decades, and it's one of the most talked about near misses in Hollywood history. While it's not uncommon for actors to pass on roles that later become legendary, just think of how many leading men turned down the chance to star in Die Hard. Selleck's situation is particularly mind-blowing. He was not only considered for the role of Indiana Jones, but he was actually cast in it. However, he had to withdraw due to a prior commitment to a little show called Magnum P.I. While one could argue that Selleck's career flourished as a result of Magnum P.I., which made him a household name, it must have been a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that Raiders of the Lost Ark catapulted Harrison Ford to the pinnacle of movie stardom. The irony is that this casting decision has become a recurring topic in Selleck's interviews, and even today, he often reflects on his near encounter with the beloved archaeologist. So, why was Ford, who seemed destined for the role, only the second choice? Let's dive deeper into this fascinating story. When Star Wars premiered in 1977, it transformed Harrison Ford into a household name, but his journey to stardom was anything but smooth. Before his breakout role as Han Solo, Ford had struggled in Hollywood, even taking on carpentry jobs to make ends meet. Although he had a memorable part in American Graffiti, his career was stagnating. Ford maintained a close relationship with George Lucas after their collaboration on Graffiti, but Lucas was hesitant to cast the same actors repeatedly. He wanted to avoid creating a stock company of actors, which is why several other talents, including Kurt Russell, were considered for the role of Han Solo. Ultimately, Ford's audition was so impressive that he secured the part, which launched him into a series of leading roles, including the sequels to The Guns of Navarone, The Frisco Kid alongside Gene Wilder, and his first solo lead in the World War II film Hanover Street. Unfortunately, all of these films flopped, leading many to doubt whether Ford would truly become a superstar. Meanwhile, Tom Selleck was making his mark on television, albeit without much distinction. He had starred in several unsuccessful TV pilots, but none had gained traction. However, a small role in the 1978 film Coma, where he played a patient, showcased his charm and trademark mustache, catching the attention of audiences. Additionally, his recurring role on the Rockford Files as a private investigator helped pave the way for his eventual casting as Thomas Magnum in Magnum P.I. After filming the pilot in Hawaii, Selleck's career seemed to be on the upswing. At the same time, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were gearing up to introduce Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Recognizing the potential for a franchise, they aimed to replicate the success of the James Bond series by casting an unknown actor and grooming him for stardom across multiple films. A variety of actors auditioned for the role, including Harry Hamlin, John Shea, Sam Elliott, and Tim Matheson. However, it was Selleck, still sporting his Magnum P.I. mustache, who truly impressed during his screen test. His performance, particularly in a comedic scene with Marion, demonstrated that he could have been just as successful in the role as Ford. For a brief moment, it seemed like Selleck was on the verge of landing the part, especially since his option to continue with Magnum P.I. was set to expire in just 10 days. So what ultimately happened? The answer is straightforward. CBS, realizing Selleck's rising star power due to interest from Spielberg and Lucas, decided to greenlight Magnum P.I. This decision would later echo in the industry when NBC did something similar with Pierce Brosnan, who was cast as James Bond in 1986. Although Brosnan eventually got his chance to play Bond, Selleck never had the opportunity to portray Indiana Jones. He could have easily thrown a tantrum to escape his contract. But in a candid interview, he stated, "I made a deal with Magnum, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm proud that I lived up to my contract. Some people suggested I should get into a car accident to get out of Magnum and do Raiders, but I couldn't do that to my parents. So I honored my commitment to Magnum, And that's not so bad, is it? Indeed, Selleck's commitment paid off, as Magnum P.I. became a massive success, running for most of the decade and solidifying his status as a television icon. On the other hand, Ford, who was already a well-known actor when he signed on for Raiders, received a hefty seven-figure salary for just one film. Although Lucas was cautious about relying too heavily on Ford, the collaboration between Ford and director Spielberg proved to be a winning combination. Spielberg even brought Ford's then-wife, Melissa Matheson, on board to write E.T., which she did brilliantly. Interestingly, Ford was initially slated to make a cameo in E.T. as Elliot's school principal, but that scene was ultimately cut. Ford went on to star in 2 more Indiana Jones films before stepping away from the role. Although the story of Indiana Jones continues to captivate audiences. As for Selleck, Magnum P.I. was a phenomenal hit, and it eventually opened doors for him in the film industry. He starred in 2 adventure films, High Road to China and Lassiter, both of which played on the fact that he was once considered for Indiana Jones. High Road to China performed reasonably well at the box office, while Lassiter flopped, as did another film, Runaway, released in 1984. For a time, it seemed like Selleck's aspirations of becoming a movie star were fading, but everything changed when he was cast in the comedy 3 Men and a Baby, which became the highest-grossing film of 1987 and solidified his status as a movie star for a period. Since then, Selleck has enjoyed a steady career on television, recently concluding a successful run on Blue Bloods, which lasted even longer than Magnum P.I. Selleck has always maintained a philosophical outlook regarding his near miss with Indiana Jones. In his autobiography, he shares that he attended the premiere of Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981, fully aware that it would be a remarkable film, and it certainly was. He recalls that the moment he saw Ford being chased by a boulder in the film's opening sequence, he realized that Ford was the embodiment of Indiana Jones. Ultimately, Selleck found fulfillment in his work on Magnum P.I., as the show, in its own right, established him as a timeless figure in popular culture. Sometimes, life unfolds in unexpected ways, and one has to wonder, could anyone else have truly captured the essence of Indiana Jones like Harrison Ford did? It's a question worth pondering.